So I thought first I would sit there because then I would be considered a rose between two thorns. But that didn't seem right
Wow.
because then I really realized I
Because
would
the
have been
two roses are right
exactly,
here. So
exactly.
what?
So I would have then realistically I would have been the thorn between two roses. So that's why I had to sit on the edge here. So
Yeah, there you go.
So in case anyone isn't noticing, because we do video podcasts now on Spotify and YouTube, you're looking at the core team of Embracing Brokenness Ministries. So I have
Yes.
with me today, many of you know Colleen. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Katie, hey, welcome. Good to
Thank
have you
you.
with us. Katie Scott, for any of you that have been tracking, is the newest member of our team, although it's not all that new anymore, is it? I mean, you've been around for a few months now. haven't you? Okay. So good. We wanted to introduce you to the core team because there's going to be a lot of changes in 2024. We know there's growth coming. We know there's a lot that God has in store. But we also wanted you to get a better understanding of who we are individually. So many of you, there's newer listeners and viewers in our audience. So we thought this would be a great opportunity here at the end of the year. Merry Christmas. We'll tell you that again.
Christmas.
We'll tell you that again before it's over. To just get you to be a little more familiar with us personally, but also with the plans that we have and what our ministry really looks like. So I'll just start quickly by saying that for me, Steve, I have been in this journey for a long, long time. So I became a Christian at roughly, I'd say, look, I probably 9 years old was the official time, but ever since I could say Jesus, I believed. That's just true. Now, there were some detours along the way, and part of why we even do ministry right now is to recognize the fact that brokenness exists in the world, and we have to be willing to understand our own role in it. And so for me, it was, yes, I was saved, but I made a lot of detours in places that I would rather have not gone. Not horrendously, but, they weren't great. And we'll tell that story another time. But the coolest thing is that we're back. We're doing things together as a group because God called us to live out that brokenness in a little different way. And so, Carl, maybe you could just, take us back a little bit to your journey. And you can also go back on our YouTube channel. There's some places where this story shows up in more detail. But tell us a little bit about how it all began for you.
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, I was a Christian from a young age. I was baptized at the age of 13, so I guess that was kind of my public disclosure, and grew up in a Christian home. We did go to many different kinds of churches, so multi-denominational, and that's a story for another day. But, I was very, very focused on doing all the right things, right? Like, okay, so I say yes to God, then there's this checklist that I need to go through, which meant I needed to carry my Bible the right way and run so many youth groups and, lead the prayer teams and do all those kinds of things. And at the age of 28, I was very, very dissatisfied with my relationship with God, with family issues. I always say I broke up with everyone, including my fiance. At the age of 28, went into a major depression for 3 years. And in that time, did not really see God at work, came out of that and realized, okay, I'm my ticket to heaven. But, and that's fine, right? Because that's really important. But I'm not really sure God is impacting how I live my life day in, day out, because it just doesn't seem like he's involved. And I would hear people talk about this, like intimacy with God, and, it just seemed foreign to me. And I did start to pray that if that was true, I wanted that, but I had no clue how to get there. And it probably wasn't until into my 30s, God started to answer those prayers. And I realized in hindsight, as in putting all this back together, that it was my brokenness that kept me from even having a view of God that made him the ability to be an intimate relationship. I held him far out because of other relationships, including my father, that just didn't have that same draw of this God of this incredible love that I now realize that he is. And actually, God is extremely funny and has belly laughs. And so, I mean, I just didn't know him. And the worst part about not knowing him and what caused my depression was because I didn't know him, and because the definition and creation of who I am comes from him. I mean, he's the one who created me. I didn't know myself. Yeah. And so the revelation from that time was, and with some good friends pointing some things out, that I have to press into that brokenness, all the things that broke me, that distorted my image of God. And once I had, intimacy with God and a good understanding, then I would be defined. And so I could walk out my true self. And it was only in that place of being, I think that concept of abiding is being in that place where I am totally connected to God. My true self is connected. And then his Holy Spirit pours through and the fruit of the Spirit come out. And so that journey, which has now been 20 years in the making, of just really doing that work to deal with some of those traumas and things that just provide these incredible distortions, really became the path to incredible freedom and joy in my life. And as a result of that, God asked me to give up a corporate career to go into ministry 13 years ago now, to really be able to share that. And it really is the basis of our ministry too, because we've both walked a parallel path in that kind of healing. And so that would be my journey, and why the ministry is so incredibly important for us is we just want people to be free. We want people to walk in their true self-identity, and because we want to be game changers, right? Like Jesus's sacrifice was to take us back to the positioning of what God created us to be. In the beginning, the purpose of man is just so beautiful that, that's who we need to be recreated on this side of the new heaven and the new earth.
Thank you. That was awesome. One of the things you said was that you started in full-time ministry about 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, when was that? That was probably about how many years ago did you meet Katie?
Was it 9?
Oh, man.
8 or 9?
When did you?
It was, probably 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'll never forget her showing up in my office. I had 4 candidates to interview for one position, and I think she was the third of 4. And I met her, and it was almost like my spirit leapt and went, she's it. And I had other people in the interview. I'm like, I don't really care how they're ranking the person, because this is the one that I'm getting. That's how I felt about Katie when I met her.
So what's cool about that is that who knew, that was at Mission where both Katie and Colleen worked for a number of years, but who knew that at some point, well, I guess we kind of did. Like we kind of figured somewhere along the line, maybe Katie would join ranks with us.
We knew Katie would be in our life forever.
Yeah.
Like it was that kind of a connection. But once we realized that we were going to do ministry, in fact, probably a few minutes after we decided we were going to do this full time, at some point, Katie's name started coming up all the time for me. In fact, I'm surprised you didn't, offer her a job before we even started the ministry. So it was pretty crazy.
There's your segue.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where this all started for you and how you even are sitting here.
Yeah. I think my background is pretty similar to Colleen's in that I grew up in a Christian home.
Okay.
I knew how to act, how to behave. I knew what would make my parents proud.
Yep.
I thought I knew what would make God proud. So I was the best people pleaser. Very performance driven. It defined who I was. It's how I felt validated. And I remember when I started working under Colleen at the Mission, I was, trying my best to be perfect, the perfect employee. And I remember sitting with her, and I don't know what it was about, but I must have made a mistake or something, and I dropped the ball. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember Colleen saying, I sense that you're people pleasing, or she said something that just exposed a huge part of my brokenness that I had been hiding successfully for so long, and it's not that I was intentionally hiding it, but it's how I felt valued as a child of God, was that if I did things a certain way and behaved and was a good kid, and I thought that was what defined my worth. And I think Colleen started me down this journey of looking at all of those performance things, which we call isms.
Yes, we do.
Which has become part of my language over the last 9 years. But Colleen just helping me to show me where my broken places were, but then not just that. another defining moment for me was that Colleen was loving me through my brokenness.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me because I thought that love meant you were approving of what I was doing, or that I was doing things the right way, and that I was getting a thumbs up. And I thought that's what that meant. But it was just a really transformative season of my life working under Colleen to be able to make mistakes because they were inevitable.
Yeah.
But for her to graciously and lovingly point that out while also loving me through the healing process, no matter how long that would take. And even now, I'll call Colleen up and I'll say, my brokenness is showing and I have to talk to you about it. And I'll talk through it and before I think I used to try to filter, how do I sound not as broken when I'm talking about something? And now I'm like, yeah, this is a broken place that I can't wait to find healing for. And I think that became the motivation for me was I discovered a broken place, and now it's an opportunity to heal from that brokenness and discover a new relationship with God, a new intimacy with God that is separate from anything I can do or try to be.
Yeah.
So that was huge for me.
Well, and the huge part too is that I always find myself walking with you through these things, and I hear the things I'm saying to you, and all of a sudden it dawns on me, I'm like, all right, I have to confess something. I'm struggling with that same thing. And I don't think I realized it till we were talking. I'm like, oh my goodness, And so the beauty of it is the journey, right? Not the focus on one person's brokenness. It's just when we can walk in, we're all broken. Then we get to do that for each other. And it's just, it's amazing, that kind of community.
Yeah.
Was there anything so you talk about the journey. Was there anything specific that comes to mind? Like there was a moment where like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of getting this, or there's like, ding, the light went on,
Yeah, I think it was a slow process over the last 9 years in total, but really what catapulted my relationship with God was when I found out I was pregnant with my first child. I was experiencing severe abdominal pain for a while. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work.
Right.
And my doctor sent me in for an ultrasound. They found an embryo lodged, implanted in the fallopian tube, right where the uterus starts. So we discussed that it was an ectopic pregnancy. It was non-viable. And that was very scary for me. That was my first pregnancy. So I remember sitting in a warm bathtub in the middle of the night between that first ultrasound and the second one, which the doctor wanted to have to discuss next steps. And I was sitting in the bathtub and I was crying and I was pleading with God for hours. And I remember this sense of peace came over me, and I felt the word surrender, which I still remember that. And I just said, God, if this is going to be part of my story, then I will try my best to glorify you in it. And went into the ultrasound. It was 2 days later, and the picture showed that the embryo had moved to a viable location.
Oh, wow.
Which was a complete miracle.
Yeah.
And I had never experienced anything like that in my life, where so much felt like it was at stake. And God pulled through. And that really transformed my relationship with God. And now that little embryo is 4 years old. And
I was just doing dog training with our puppy upstairs.
and she's amazing. And so she was my first daughter, and I have a second daughter now. She'll be 2 in March.
Yes, and we need to shout out. Reagan, we love you. Savannah, we love you, because we know you're going to watch this, and you guys are awesome.
So I think motherhood for me is what started that journey of intimacy with God, because for any moms out there, you know that sometimes you're just hanging on by a prayer, and you don't know, you're living from 1 minute to the next. You don't know how you're getting through. You're in survival mode. And so really just wanting, I had this desire for years now to connect with other moms and these stirrings in my heart that so many moms have as well.
Yeah.
These things that we experience throughout the day, these little miracles, a lot like Mary, Jesus' mom, experienced. And it says in the Bible that she treasured the things she saw and pondered them in her heart.
Yes.
That is motherhood.
Oh,
We see things
beautiful.
that no one else sees in the middle of the night when we're tired and nobody else is up, but our baby is. And we see these things that no one else gets to see, but we treasure them in our heart.
Wow.
So for me, having the ability to connect with other moms, other people too. I mean, it's not just limited to moms, but being able to put those feelings out on paper, pen and paper, and in our case, a lot of it is social media.
Yep.
But being able to write those things down, that's what I really enjoy, is getting those things out there as a connection point for others to say, that was me too.
Yeah.
So motherhood became the transformative part for me, I think.
So cool.
But now there's this outpouring of things that I'm experiencing, and I'm like, man, I know other people are experiencing this too.
Yep.
So just wanting to share that.
And
So
so in
cool.
case you probably can't tell initially, but here's two extroverts. Katie, probably not as much as us at all, right?
Yeah.
But you can now see why she's part of our team. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't take very long to get the idea of the heart that
man.
that she carries for this ministry, and
Yeah.
for anyone that comes in contact with us. You are going to enjoy getting to know Katie better. So we are encouraging her to write more and to participate more in these types of things. You're going to see a lot of her around and
for
hear
sure.
from her in writing in different places. So keep
And
your
get
eyes out.
the wisdom, not
Yes.
only for moms, which I love. You know, we really have a passion and heart for moms raising the next generation. There's nothing more important than what you invest in your children. So we as a ministry have a heart for that, but to have somebody to give voice to moms, like, we think is so exciting. So
It's going to be a fun journey.
yes.
We have plans for 2024 to bring more folks on our team, but to shout out to people we would consider allies too.
Yes.
You've seen Michael Kurtz, for example, has been on the podcast and has written with us. You'll get to know a gentleman by the name of Lenny soon. You will also get to know others that have just contributed and have come alongside us in prayer too. We have a prayer team. They are the underground support that isn't so underground, because they are actually on top of just covering everything that we do, and we call on them often, regularly with requests, but also once in a while, ding, 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 a little bit of emergency, pray.
Yeah.
You can imagine this ministry is under tremendous spiritual warfare a lot, and there's a lot going on we don't see. We're very protected in it, and many ministries, not just this one, but the message that we carry, the message of healing from, wounds and traumas and things in every one of our lives that we suffer from. We either experience them directly because someone perpetrates our life in a way that we never expected, and it just leaves those wounds, or subtly. We have parents. We all have parents that did the best they could, but like mine, they had an expectation of perfection and performance. You brought that up earlier, Katie. That was beyond anything I would have hoped for. Let me put it that way. I was an only child. That probably made it a little worse too. But everyone has a story. So what we want to do is we honor those stories. We honor anyone that is willing to engage with us in the ministry, and we will be doing more of that in the coming months. But it is a team. It is a team of people that pray. It's a team of, you see a few here, and it will be growing. And we just know. We have been very thankful for what God has provided us in the wherewithal to grow this ministry. We're sitting here today because of that. We were talking about podcast mics not that long ago. Okay, at one point they were just a little things. So grow. So we're just really thankful for that. Carl, as we start to look ahead, right, we're into 2024. I mean, what comes, and I'll give Katie a shot at this too, but what comes to mind for you? What would you hope to see as we enter the next year? What would you like to see?
I am so excited for 2024. Not that I want to like get there and blow out the rest of 2023, but I think, this has been such a season of, me leaving a job, joining you in full-time ministry. I feel like it's just been the foundational pieces we've been putting together this year while we're finishing our book. So our book hopefully will launch first quarter of next year with the study guide so people can do small groups with it. But with that, I just see us doing more teaching and training, the things that we love to do. I mean, our goal is to invest in people to multiply the ability for people to become wounded healers, which means we use our wounded places to heal other people. So it's really a ministry of multiplication of what God has done for us. We should not be the doers of all of it, you and I.
Absolutely.
But what I love is even in Katie, like just to see her out in her environment and to hear stories, she's multiplying it. And so I think as we look at, right now we're doing some one-on-one work with people. It's beautiful. I love it. It is wonderful to sit on the sidelines as God heals people. But I know that's probably not practical for the long term. So what we plan to launch in 2024 is something called the Embracing Brokenness Circle, which will give people access to an online community with tools. We'll probably regularly be listing different things to go deeper in your relationship with God, things to just that individually or, collectively with a small group, people can actually do things that take them deeper and deeper into this journey. Because I think one of the frustrations is you hear the hope of, wow, that happened, but the church really, from a discipleship standpoint, has not really equipped many of us to know, what does it look like? What do I do? What happens when, if Katie's story would have been that embryo wouldn't have been viable and we wouldn't have little Reagan. So she surrenders that to the Lord, but she's in this horribly painful spot. Yeah. Well, the practice of lament and, individually, usually, you process lament with somebody very safe for you because you want to read it out loud to the Lord, but you may not want to do that alone. So what we plan to do is to have this community with tools where you can look at the tool, you can find a best friend or a connector. And I see even, just different pieces of discussion boards that Steve and Katie and I and whoever joins us will be active on moderating so that people can, start to have a tribe of people who are looking at this healing thing, asking questions, supporting each other. There is no more important thing for Christians to be doing today than to be focused on bringing Jesus' glory, which is a healed up church, a healed up bride, which is reflecting his glory, And so I think that's fully our emphasis is for people to come into that healing, reflect his glory, and give it away to other people. Yeah. So however that comes together in 2024, we are very, very excited about this new year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Katie, what do you think?
Oh, that makes me excited.
It's going to be good.
Well, I want to touch on the book because when I read parts of the book, I got so excited because I felt like this book puts to words a lot of my healing journey in my 20s. I'm 30 now.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's the language that we use at Embracing Brokenness and the practices we talk about and teach. The book covers that, and I think that's exciting to me for something to be published that actually feels like it's me, and I would hope that other people who learn about us and listen to our podcast, do any of our teaching seminars, that they would see that that's them too. So I'm very excited about the book and also the opportunity to do study guides, group sessions, study guides. I have a list of women that I'm like, just wait. I'm going to be knocking on your door and we're going to sit down and do this together because it not only does it bring you closer to God and you get excited about addressing your broken places
Yeah.
because you see them as opportunities to get closer to God.
Yep.
And not just feeling exposed. I mean, there
Yeah.
is a part of that comes with it.
Yeah.
But in safe community, you can walk through your healing
Amen.
hand in hand with people who have also done that in other
Yep.
places.
Yep. Yep.
So being able to have the opportunity to do that in my own community of moms and friends, sitting down with them and being able to start walking through that healing,
That's great.
I'm really excited about that.
That's
And
so good.
also, my Wholeheartedly
Yes.
blog.
We're very excited about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I'm
are.
excited to have the opportunity to just continue to reach more people, make
Yeah.
connections,
Awesome.
maybe have a few more contributors to that of moms who have had different experiences. I know my experience, but I also know that there's a lot of other experiences with moms and people my age. So it would be really cool to see that grow a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it will grow. So keep
Yeah.
your eyes open for Wholeheartedly
Yep.
by Katie.
Yep. Yep.
Blogs, periodic posts, probably showing up in the Daily Memo.
There you go.
Video, podcast. See, there's going to be all kinds of tools out there for sure. But the best part is that you're reaching a group of people we know that are plugged into the ministry that are in a, it's a challenging time now. My daughter's 39, so it's a vague memory as to what all those little people's. Except, wait, there is a little four-legged creature upstairs
my.
running around who's our. Well, sometimes demon dog, but not most of the time.
Most of the time, he's awesome.
He's awesome. Yeah. So the other member of our family who's not here, and I'll probably put a picture up right here so you can see him, is Bo. He's our 14-week now.
Turned 14 weeks yesterday.
14-week-old golden retriever. And I now know why grandparents, which I would consider myself as one, even though I don't have any grandkids yet, should not raise little kids. Because this is like having a four-legged little kid around. You cannot take your eyes off of them all the time.
Yeah.
So, yes, I digress. But partly our enthusiasm is really about reaching a broad audience of people that just... So I feel like it is the people that engage most with our ministry. This could be anyone, by the way. We reach an audience. It's there's no age. We can see it on demographics and people we interact with. But it is a frame of mind, isn't it?
Yes.
It does require. I mean, first of all, this idea of embracing your brokenness seems a little foreign to most people, and it is. It's not something you put on your bucket list, right? When you're growing up, like, I'm going to really embrace my brokenness. Okay, I'm messed up and I got to deal with it, right? So, not so much that, but when you understand the context of our faith and our following of Jesus Christ in this process and turning our life over to Him, you get where, in community like this, how important it is for us to share with each other.
Big time.
Not only our stories, but our heartaches and our heartbreaks. And, you have been walking alongside of someone now for a little while. If you're comfortable, you can just give the broad strokes to it, but not, it doesn't have to be in detail. But so you know what it's like, right, to help support people in crisis, like your own even, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and just learning to sit with them
Yeah.
in their crisis and not encourage them to get out of it or
Yes.
Yeah.
try to push them forward in their grieving. Walking with a friend of mine who recently lost someone very important in her life. One of the things Colleen said to me as I was just sharing some of the things that were happening during that initial tragedy and afterwards, the shock afterwards, Colleen said, your presence is the biggest gift you can give that person.
Yeah.
And I really took that to heart and just remind myself of that and pray about that as I'm going into sitting with her, meeting her where she's at, showing up at her door, and just checking in. So I think that for me was huge.
Yeah.
I can sit in this with her and I don't have to I don't have to assume that tomorrow if I ask her how she's doing, then it's going to be a different answer.
Right.
And it might be worse and it might be a little bit better. But that doesn't mean her healing is this linear movement forward. It's going to have dips. And so, that was huge for me to understand that I can just sit with her and be.
Yeah, and I think that's really an important part of this journey. We talk
Yeah.
about it a lot. It isn't linear. It jumps all over the place. It's not.
No.
Some of us are planners, more planners than others.
I don't plan anything.
She don't plan anything. Katie plans
I
everything.
just show up and
So Katie keeps us straight, on time,
Yes.
on
Oh,
schedule, runs projects, admin, you name it. She does it all.
Yeah.
And sits on podcasts and talks to people. So, but it isn't that type of journey. You know, when we surrender, you know, this idea of, you know, we hear it talked a lot about in Christian circles, sanctification or the spiritual formation of our lives. It's a constant, what we use the analogy of peeling back the layers of an onion a little bit at a time. It just doesn't happen always in our timing and the way we'd hope it to be. We have to recognize that even in our most traumatic events in life, there's something God will teach us through it, and we have to be open to what that would look like. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And
I have two things
Go ahead.
that I would like to say. I feel like this is really important to somebody listening right now. And that is, you know, Embracing Brokenness, we run in Western culture because we have money and things, we run from the word brokenness. So it's not really something people go, oh, great thing, let's go embrace that. Yeah. But so if you're like struggling to even understand what are they talking, like what is brokenness? I want to give you a piece of encouragement right now, and that is if you are sitting in any place in your Christian journey of spiritual discontent, where you're like, boy, I wish there was more to this. I wish, you know, we usually point our finger at other people. I wish they acted differently. Well, sometimes when you point that finger back, you probably need to act differently too. I'm not saying that about you. I very often need to act differently than I do. And then conviction comes. But if you are sitting in any kind of spiritual discontentment that you want something different with God, then I think our ministry is aimed at helping to answer that question. If we are honest, every single person goes through periods of spiritual discontentment, and it is in community and it is in safe community where we're okay to just stop and be present. We don't have the answers, guys. Like I always say, we're about 2 years old compared to God in his wisdom. So really, if I bring my Holy Spirit to Katie's Holy Spirit, to Steve's, we are combined and we just sit in the presence of the Lord, safety and community of the triune nature of God is present with us, and it brings healing. And I think one of our things is we rush to try to find answers to people's pain, and it doesn't fall well. I will say when my first husband died, the things I heard, I was shocked going, yes, I've said those to people before, but I will never say them again. And I realized that sitting silent is the best thing that you can do for someone, because really you're providing a safe space for God to work. So number one, if you're feeling spiritual discontent, stay tuned with us, because we're going to talk a lot more about that in 2024. I think that is the place where healing begins, and recognition of brokenness actually begins from that place. And number two, use few words in situations of crisis, but bring your presence to situations for people to feel the safety of God. That's where safe community actually starts. No judgments, because you're not going to understand somebody's broken junk when they say it, just like they're not going to understand yours. But when we understand we all have broken junk, it stops us from judging, and we focus on ours. And it's the community that understands broken junk that actually helps get you to God to heal it.
Thank you. Perfect.
You're
Perfect
welcome.
segue.
Okay.
Now, on a brighter note, but that is a bright note. That's hope. That's potential.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Hello. So
we love Christmas here.
We love. Yes. Well, the decorations aren't up yet, but they will.
They're going up later today because you can't start till the day after Thanksgiving, and that would be today.
So if you can't tell, we're recording this a little bit before Christmas, and so you're. But you will probably see this the week of or the week before. So, Katie, how would you like to leave our crew? What would you like to say? Anything?
Oh,
Any
man.
final words on this Christmas season?
I think just something that's on my heart is I feel like, I'm not speaking for everyone, but from what my experience has been and what I've seen is that a lot of people my age, they don't know where to go. You know, they're kind of disenchanted by church.
Yeah.
They might do therapy sessions, talk therapy, which
Right.
I think that there's a place for that for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
But I think they're still ignoring some of the stuff deep down,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think that embracing brokenness is really trying to address this stuff deep down.
Yeah.
And we might live in a world where the high performance driven nature or people pleasing, workaholism, all those pretty isms,
Yep.
which we talk about, are seen as good things, but really they're just the same brokenness that alcoholism is, or
Yeah.
drug addiction, or all those less, less
Less-
appealing ones.
Right. Less pretty.
Not pretty ones. But it's all the same. So
Yes, amen.
I think for me, just understanding that this is not a specific age group, that
Yeah.
we're all
Yes.
struggling with the same brokenness.
Yes.
And I think that that's like an important thing to
It is.
To
It
touch
is.
on.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So, to wrap things up, I think this will be wrapping things up for 2023. We just want to continue to encourage you all to stay connected, not necessarily with Embracing Brokenness, we'd like that, but stay connected in community. Colleen brings
Amen.
a great point. In your local church community, your friends, those that believe what you believe, that are going to be encouraging to you in your journey with Christ. Stay connected. We will be part of that with you. We're thrilled to walk along on this journey with anybody that would entrust us with some of the most precious things that we encounter on this side of heaven. So thank you all very much. We want to just bless you and say Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
And stay tuned. There's much more to come. Thank
Amen.
you, guys.
Thank you.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Blessings.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, or to subscribe to our blog, podcast, YouTube channel, or engage with us on social media, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org. Thanks for joining us.